In the Lawson household, success wasn't celebrated. It was measured, ranked, compared, weaponized. And Natalie, she wasn't just the older sister, she was the benchmark, the golden standard. By the time she was 10, Natalie could recite the Constitution by heart. By 16, she was conducting lab experiments in summer programs at Harvard. And when she got a full-ride scholarship to medical school, my father raised a toast like we'd just won the Olympics. He called her the future of America. But me, I wasn't Natalie. I didn't dream in textbooks. I dreamed in pixels. I built my first website before I had a learner's permit, fixed the neighbors' computers for $10 and leftover cookies. And I thought maybe this would make them proud, but it never did. Because in my family, being smart wasn't enough. You had to be their kind of smart, structured, prestigious, predictable. Every compliment Natalie got was a reminder of what I wasn't, and every silence toward me louder than any scream. My first taste of pride didn't come from a grade. It came from a paper jam. I was 12. The neighbor's old printer wouldn't stop beeping. I opened the lid, poked around, and fixed it with a bent paperclip. They gave me $10 and 2 movie tickets. That felt better than any A+ I'd ever received. By 15, I'd built a simple online catalog for Miss Martin's flower shop. 3 days later, she got her first online order. She cried. I smiled. That tiny spark, seeing real people benefit from my skills, ignited something in me. I didn't care about fancy awards. I cared about impact. But when I showed my mother the website, she didn't smile. She barely looked. "You should be studying for the SAT," she said. "These little hobbies won't get you into Columbia." And my father, he looked at the laptop and said, "If you want to be a lifetime tech support girl, then by all means keep going." That sentence cut deeper than anything else ever had, because to them, my gift wasn't valuable. It was an embarrassment. It was supposed to be just another family dinner. Meatloaf, steamed broccoli, awkward silence, the usual. College brochures were stacked neatly on the table. Stanford, Princeton, Yale, Columbia. My father had arranged them like trophies waiting to be claimed, but I wasn't hungry for any of it. Not the food, not the life they wanted for me. My heart pounded, my palms were damp. I stared at the table, then looked up, and I said it. I'm not applying to college. I'm starting my own business. I already have a client and a plan. Forks stopped midair. My mother blinked like she'd misheard me. My father didn't blink at all. He stood slowly. His voice didn't rise. It cut. "That's not happening. Not under this roof." Just 7 words, but they felt like a thunderclap to the chest. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just nodded and stood up. Dinner was over, and so was the illusion that I'd ever be seen. No farewell, no good luck, no one at the door waving goodbye. Just me, 3 suitcases, and a second-hand laptop that buzzed louder than it worked. Creaky wooden floors, drafty windows that refused to shut tight. But for the first time in my life, it was mine. There was no dining table, so I worked on the floor. There was no office, so I made one in the corner between the fridge and the window. Each night, I ate cup noodles with boiled eggs, and each morning, I woke up before the sun to write code, to chase clients, to keep Rustic Cart alive. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't Instagrammable, but it was real. I was broke. But I was free. And for the first time ever, I belonged to myself. Every night, I sent out dozens of emails to small craft stores, to local artists, to anyone who might believe in my idea. Most never replied. Some did just to laugh. No college degree? Good luck with that. One even sent back a gif with someone falling off a cliff. I stared at the screen, trying not to flinch, trying not to care. But I did care. Of course I did. I poured every waking hour into Rustic Cart. Built pages, fixed bugs, tweaked layouts. Still no traction. No signups. No sales. My bank account dropped below $300. Rent was due in 2 weeks. I bought eggs in bulk, turned off the heater, and smiled through it all. That tired, practiced smile you wear when you're losing hope, but still pretending you've got it together. Truth was, I was one bad week away from packing up and going back. But something inside me kept whispering, just one more day, keep going, one more. It was a cold February evening. I had just burned my last $20 on a shipment I wasn't even sure would arrive. My car was still in the shop, my inbox was still empty, and I was running out of reasons to keep pretending this would work. That's when I saw a flyer online. Small business meetup, downtown library, free entry. I almost scrolled past, but something in me whispered, just go. I didn't wear heels. I wore the same sneakers I've worn all week, sat in the back row. Quiet, invisible, until she spoke. Marcia Bennett, mid-50s, silver hair tied back, no flashy suit, no slides, just her voice. Strong, grounded, and real. She spoke about building systems, not just selling things, about vision, not just survival. After the talk, people crowded her. I waited until the room emptied. Then I walked up, palms sweaty, and handed her a homemade business card. I'm Ruby. I run a tiny online platform for artisans. No degrees, no team. But I've got real clients, real work, just not enough of it yet. She looked at the card, then at me, and smiled. You don't need more individual customers, she said calmly. You need to think bigger. What you've built, that's not a website. It's a system. Don't sell soap one bar at a time. Build the tool that sells for 50 shops at once. That was the moment, the shift. For the first time, someone didn't ask for my resume. They saw my potential. When I got home that night, I didn't sleep. I stared at my code base, at every line I had written, and realized Marcia was right. Rustic Cart was too small for the vision I carried. So I did something terrifying. I tore it all down, every page, every line of code, and I rebuilt it. Not for hobby crafters, but for serious businesses, retail chains, multi-location inventory systems, real-time order tracking. I renamed it Craft Logic Solutions. Because now, this wasn't a side project. It was a system, a product, a future. 5 days later, I got an email. Maple and Sage, a handcrafted furniture chain with 36 locations, had stumbled onto my pitch deck. Can your software track per location inventory? Send us a demo. I had 5 days. No team, no office, just me and Jared the intern, who believed in me more than I believed in myself. We worked 16-hour days, drank instant coffee, and coded from ramen boxes. By day 5, we had a working demo, clean dashboard, live sync, automated alerts. When the call came, I pitched like my life depended on it, because in a way, it did. The contract, $420,000, with $150,000 up front. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just sat still and realized this is what happens when you bet on your own fire. There was no office, no sleek boardroom, no espresso machine in the corner, just my apartment kitchen, a folding chair, a secondhand table. And Jared, my first intern, hunched over his laptop, right next to a pot of boiling ramen. Our whiteboard taped to the fridge door with packing tape. Every week, we wrote new features on it with dry erase markers. Client feedback, system bugs, big dreams in tiny handwriting. We didn't have ergonomic chairs. We had noodle boxes stacked as laptop stands. We didn't have a coffee machine. We had instant packets and willpower. Craft Logic didn't grow in a tower. It grew between piles of laundry and takeout containers, but somehow within those cramped walls, a $1 million platform took its first real shape. And we didn't need polished glass windows to believe in what we were building. We had faith, we had fire, and we had no backup plan. When Maple and Sage signed the contract, there was no champagne, no confetti, no viral LinkedIn post. Just me sitting on my couch holding a coffee-stained printout of the deal. $420,000. $150,000 up front. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the weight of everything it took to get here. 3 months ago, I couldn't afford groceries. Now, a national retail chain was trusting my software to run their entire inventory system. That first project, we delivered early, flawlessly, and word spread. One referral turned into three, three into seven. Small stores started asking, "Are you the team behind the Maple and Sage system? Can you build something like that for us?" And for the first time, people weren't laughing at the lack of a degree. They were respecting the results. Craft Logic was no longer a side hustle. It was a name quietly echoing through the retail world. I didn't need to shout. I just needed to show up and deliver. And I did. It happened almost all at once. First, my father lost his job. 28 years as a tenured professor, gone. Budget cuts, department dissolved, no severance. A week later, my mother was diagnosed. Autoimmune thyroid disorder. Specialized medication, long-term treatment not covered by insurance. Then came the part that stunned me the most. No one called, not even once. Not to ask for help, not even to inform me. To them, I was still the dropout, the disgrace, the stubborn Goddard who refused to do things the right way. Natalie, the ever-so-perfect doctor, said over text, "I'm swamped. Between shifts and the twins, I can't handle anything more." I read it 3 times. Cold, clean, clinical. It was like watching a house fall apart in slow motion. And no one thought to knock on the one door that had quietly kept them standing, because in their eyes, I didn't exist. They never asked. But I knew. If no one stepped in, they'd lose everything. The house, the medication, their stability. So I acted. Not for their approval, but because I couldn't stand to watch them fall. I called my lawyer, Robert, told him to create a fake nonprofit support grant, Spring Hill Holding. It would send monthly payments straight to their mortgage company, disguised as community education support for retired educators. Next, we formed a shell company, Brightstone Consulting. It issued a contract to my father, hiring him to write a civic education curriculum, pay $2,000 a month. He never wrote a word, but he cashed the checks and bragged about his new consulting role. Then came the twins. Natalie couldn't afford the daycare she once flaunted on social media, so I created 2 anonymous scholarships, each labeled Northwest Infant Potential Development Grant, $950 a year, per child. They never questioned it. They just smiled at the miracle. And me, I stayed invisible. A week after the scholarships cleared, Natalie posted on Facebook a photo of the twins holding crayons at their new bilingual daycare. 2 grins. One caption, "It's a miracle. God always provides in his own way." Blessed, I stared at the screen. For a moment, I didn't feel angry, just hollow. God. No, it wasn't God. It was me. It was legal paperwork, fake EIN numbers, and wire transfers at 2 a.m. It was 3 months of unpaid sleep, 5 years of being invisible, and 1,000 little choices to give, without ever being asked. I didn't comment. I didn't like the post. I just smiled. Not a bitter smile, not even sad. Just the quiet kind. The kind you wear when you know you've given everything and they still don't see you. Thanksgiving. The house smelled like rosemary and control. Ruby stood at the front door with a bottle of wine in one hand and a thick folder in the other. 40 pages of carefully organized truth. When she stepped inside, nothing had changed. Same beige furniture. Same glass cabinets filled with trophies that didn't belong to her. Her mother, as always, was busy plating stuffing, too busy to look up. Her father nodded without smiling, barely glancing from the business section of his paper. And Natalie, she floated down the stairs like she was headed to the cover of Doctor's Weekly. Her husband unbuckled the twins and whispered, "Let's keep the kids away from Aunt Ruby's weird laptop, okay?" No one asked Ruby how she'd been. No one asked where she lived. No one even asked if she was still alive. The toast began, of course, with a speech about Natalie. To Natalie, her father declared, chief resident, dedicated wife, brilliant mother. What a blessing to have her in our family. Forks clinked, people clapped, and Ruby, she sat there, quiet, steady, with a folder full of revelations, and the fire in her chest said, "It's time." Ruby didn't raise her voice. She didn't bang the table. She simply reached into her bag and pulled out the truth. One by one, she placed the papers in front of them. First, a glossy magazine cover with her photo, Ruby Lawson, founder and CEO of Craft Logic Solutions. Then, bank statements from Spring Hill Holding, showing months of mortgage payments. Next, copies of the Brightstone consulting contract, signed and stamped under her father's name. And finally, anonymous scholarship award letters for Jacob and Lily with routing numbers leading back to her own account. The room went silent. Utensils froze midair. Even the kids stopped squirming. Ruby folded her hands, looked at them calmly, and said, "I've been the one supporting this family for 4 years, quietly, consistently, without ever asking for credit." Her father stood up, face red with disbelief. "You're lying," he barked. "You made this up. No one without a degree builds a company like that." He slapped his hand against the table. Forks jumped. A glass nearly tipped over. But Ruby, she didn't flinch. She just met his eyes and whispered, "And yet I did." She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood up. Ruby rose, slowly, calm, composed, unshaken. Her voice was low, but every word landed like stone. "If I'm a disgrace, then people who see me that way don't get to live off my money." Silence. No one moved. Not her mother. Not Natalie. Not even her father, who was still breathing heavy, his hand clenched on the table. Ruby gathered her folder, the pages still neatly stacked, truths that no one wanted but everyone had seen. She looked around the room, not in anger, not even in sadness, just release. Then she turned, walked out. No one followed. And this time, it wasn't a dramatic exit. It was a declaration. She wasn't leaving the family. She was leaving the role they forced her into. For good. She could have picked anywhere. New York, San Francisco, even gone overseas. But Ruby chose Clearwater, Florida, where the sun never apologized and the ocean didn't care about resumes. Her new home, a $45 million villa overlooking endless water, 10 bedrooms, glass walls, a rooftop pool, and private lab. But more than anything, it had space. Space to breathe, space to build, space to finally be herself. She opened her new HQ Craft Logic Global Hiring not by degree, but by vision, resilience, and grit. For the first time in her life, she didn't shrink to fit anyone's expectations. She wore hoodies in boardrooms. She led strategy meetings barefoot. She signed deals with billion-dollar chains and still made time to eat lunch on the grass. No longer a secret benefactor, no longer a forgotten daughter. Now Ruby was exactly what she had always been, a force. She called it the Forge Forward Grant, a startup fund for young minds with big ideas but no degrees. Because Ruby remembered the cold doors, the empty inboxes, the way "where did you go to school" killed conversations before they began. So she created a different door, a door wide open. With a single post online, applications flooded in. No resume, no problem. Show us your prototype, your pitch, your passion. In just 6 weeks, over 500 applicants, street vendors, teenage coders, single moms with game-changing apps, veterans with robotics dreams. Ruby read everyone, cried at most, and funded dozens, because behind every unpolished email, she saw a glimpse of who she used to be, hungry, scrappy, overlooked, but unstoppable. And now she wasn't just building companies, she was building belief. It started with a phone call. Natalie, her voice small, unsteady. "Hey, I know I don't deserve to ask this, but can we talk?" The next day, a letter arrived in the mail. Thick envelope, old handwriting, her father. "I see now what I refused to before. I was wrong. I'm sorry." Ruby read it in silence, then placed it on the counter beside a bowl of oranges. No tears, no shaking. She typed one sentence. "If you want to be part of my life, the only condition is respect." She hit send, closed her laptop, and went back to planting basil in the sun. Because healing doesn't always come with a reunion. Sometimes it comes with boundaries finally enforced. They sat outside. No cameras, no audience, just ocean breeze and 2 cups of tea. Her mother stirred sugar, slow, quiet. Her father kept his eyes on the waves. No one yelled, no one defended old beliefs. Ruby let the silence stay. She had waited years, not for this conversation, but for the peace to not need it. Then, softly, she spoke, "I don't live to earn your approval. I live to be free." Her father's shoulders dropped. Her mother blinked fast, maybe to hold back tears, maybe not. But they said nothing. And that was enough. Not because they finally saw her worth, but because she no longer needed them to. There were no tears, no dramatic reunions, no "I'm proud of you" whispered at the last minute, just a quiet parting. A check was paid, chairs were pushed in. And before they walked away, her mother reached out. A hug, not tight, not long, just enough. For the first time, it didn't come with conditions, corrections, or expectations. "Take care," her father said, not as a demand, but as a letting go. Ruby watched them go. No ache, no longing, only peace. She didn't need them to validate her, to clap, to kneel. She had chosen her path, and now she was choosing her peace. Every Sunday evening, her house glows with music, spices, and voices that matter. Not voices of power, but voices of truth. Artists, tinkerers, founders with fire in their eyes. You were told you'd never make it. Same here. Pass the potatoes. They don't talk about stock options. They talk about purpose, about building things that last, about failure, faith, and freedom. No one has to prove anything here. Not Ruby, not anyone. And as laughter fills the kitchen and candles flicker over mismatched dishes, Ruby smiles quietly. Because this is family. Not the one she was born into, but the one she chose, and the one that chose her back. You don't need a diploma to prove your worth. You don't need your family's approval to be whole. And you don't have to carry the wounds of rejection just to keep the peace. True freedom begins when you stop begging to be seen and start building a life where you choose who gets a seat at your table. Forgiveness is powerful, but self-respect is sacred, and sometimes healing doesn't mean going back. It means moving forward on your own terms. Let Ruby's story remind you, your path is valid, your dreams are enough, and you are not a disappointment. You are your own revolution. If Ruby's journey moved you, don't keep this moment to yourself. Hit subscribe to Whispers of Life for more stories that heal, awaken, and empower. Because sometimes all it takes is one story to remind us we're not alone. And don't forget to click the bell icon so you never miss the next whisper that might just change your life.